SmackDown's been on quite the roll recently, and hopefully if this show is any indication, it's bound to continue even though the draft is shaking up the landscape of the blue brand. What's going on, guys? I'm Graham G.S. Matthews, and this is my Friday night SmackDown review for Friday, October 16, 2020. Hope you guys are doing well. This was our first real show post-2020 WWE Draft with the new rosters, which I don't think they haven't exactly said don't go into effect, I would assume, until next week. It might be until after Hell in a Cell. I have no idea. Obviously, we did have some Raw wrestlers that were drafted on Monday nights. On Monday night, actually, of this past week. We're on the show, including Jeff Hardy, members of the New Day, Sheamus, among others, Braun Strowman, actually. We had a Raw wrestler contending for the top title on SmackDown against Roman Reigns in the main event. But overall, I thought this was a great show. I almost honestly regret watching it, or rather not watching it live. I didn't have the chance to watch it live last night, but I watched it after the fact, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought this was one of the best SmackDowns I've seen in a while, and that's saying something, because SmackDown has produced some pretty strong shows in recent memory, and this was one of the best of the bunch. Now, I don't know if they did that just because it was the quote-unquote season premiere, which I hesitate to even say, just because I feel dumb even saying it. I mean, obviously, Raw, SmackDown, whatever, they never take a week off. Even when we have shows that that aren't full of original content, they have not missed a week of these shows in forever, I don't think, if ever. I'm not exactly sure. I can't, don't quote me on that. I'm not 100% sure. They never miss an episode, so they're obviously not season finales, season premieres. They just say that to get people to watch the shows, build up to a big show, which they should be doing. This felt more exciting than whatever the hell that Hell in a Cell pay-per-view is supposed to be next Sunday. Now, granted, there are some promising matches on the card. I really don't give two fucks about Orton and McIntyre again, to be completely honest with you. Sasha and Bayley I'm looking forward to, and the Jey Uso Roman Reigns storyline has been great, so I'm looking forward to their I Quit Hell in a Cell match. I don't think we have any other matches announced for that card, and that pay-per-view is coming up in 8 days from today, next Sunday. This was the real pay-per-view, in my opinion. They added some matches that didn't really need to be added, such as the Street Profits versus Dolph Ziggler and Robert Roode for the SmackDown Tag Team titles. A team, by the way, in Roode and Ziggler, that are already reeling, that are still reeling from their loss to the New Day on Raw in a match that was for the Raw Tag Team titles. So they didn't need a second straight loss. I'll get to that momentarily. But they pretty much stacked up this show. Between the Universal Championship match, main event, the SmackDown Tag Team title match, they had Triple H and Stephanie make a random appearance, which was very surprising to me. Now, I saw the tweet that @WrestleVotes put up like a half an hour before the show. It was a gif of Triple H and Stephanie, nothing more. And I'm thinking, holy shit, like they're going to be on the show to kick off a new angle, which, for the better or for worse, we did not get on this show. They merely kicked off the show to introduce the new SmackDown roster. We got the fresh new opening with the same theme. It's still Are You Ready by AC/DC, which I'm not in love with the song, but it's AC/DC. You can never go wrong. You can never go wrong with AC/DC. But they did change up the graphics, the opening intro, which, have they aired the intro to SmackDown in a while? I don't think they have. I think it's been a couple of weeks. So it was cool to see the updated intro, which I thought was awesome. We the entire roster to kick off the show, we'll just get right into it here, standing on the stage, which normally I do not like. As soon as I saw the sight of Triple H and Stephanie standing in the ring and the rest of the SmackDown roster on the stage, why Triple H and Stephanie, I have no idea. Stephanie just made the picks for both Raw and SmackDown. She's supposed to be impartial, and Triple H is supposed to be the head of NXT in kayfabe and in real life. So why the hell he would give a fuck about SmackDown, I have no idea. Why it wasn't Shane or Vince or Adam Pearce, God forbid. Obviously he was on the show later on. He was involved in the contract signing between Bayley and Sasha Banks. I don't know. I don't know why these two. But that was all their role was. So as soon as I saw that side of them in the ring and the rest of the roster on the stage, I got really scared. It almost gave me PTSD, back to the Authority days, when we would have Triple H and Stephanie in the ring, just berating the entire WWE roster on the fucking stage. And it always made me mad, because it's like, is no one going to stand up to them? Obviously, Big Show did from time to time, and the Rhodes brothers, and later Daniel Bryan. But other than that, everyone else just took the verbal lashing from the Authority. Thankfully, that's not what this was. I thought this was good. So we got to see the new faces a part of SmackDown, including, but not limited to, Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, Aleister Black, among other people. They all went down to the ring to start brawling, because what else is new? A brawl breaks out. Jeff Hardy stands tall. Lars Sullivan stood tall, who's also now on SmackDown. He came out and just demolished everybody, including Roode and Ziggler, I think. Or actually, he took out the Street Profits. I'm not sure about Roode and Ziggler. So they hyped up the tag team title match for later on in the show. He took out Shorty Gable. He took out fucking... Who else was out there? Apollo Crews was another one. I don't see Apollo Crews' fortunes changing too much now that he's on SmackDown. And quite honestly, to be honest, I think it was nice they moved him over to SmackDown just to kind of move away from the Hurt Business stuff. But he had a pretty decent Raw run for himself earlier this year. He moved over from SmackDown to Raw, immediately got a push, and almost immediately became United States champion for about 3 or 4 months. So all things considered, Apollo Crews might be better off on Raw than he is on SmackDown. It's just unfortunate they ran that damn Hurt Business feud into the ground. So anyway, he got laid out, Shorty G got laid out, among other people. And then Jeff Hardy took out Lars from behind to lead into their immediate matchup on this show. I thought they worked well together. I thought this was a good match. Sullivan won clean, obviously, as he should have, considering Sullivan is on SmackDown, Hardy's on Raw. Hardy can take a million losses and people will still buy into him because he's Jeff frickin' Hardy, you know? So I thought this was good. They worked well together, and I don't think the commentators mentioned this, but they do have history. Now, I know Sullivan attacked Hardy and Riddle on SmackDown last week, but it would be nice if they tied it back to how Sullivan actually... Immediately following the Hardy Boys SmackDown Tag Team title victory a year and a half ago on the SmackDown after WrestleMania 35, Sullivan attacked the Hardy Boys. And then when Jeff had to vacate the tag titles, it wasn't due to an injury that I think they attributed to the Lars and storyline. I don't remember. I'm glad they kind of blew it off here on the show now that they're on separate shows. But Sullivan not only attacked him on that night, he also attacked Jeff and Matt, I think, the night they relinquished the SmackDown Tag Team titles. And they never really had a chance to, follow up on that because Jeff was hurt. He was gone up until, earlier this year. And Lars was gone up until last week. So, again, I don't know if that's why they did the match, if that's why they had Lars target, Jeff specifically, or if it's just because Jeff's this great big baby face, so it's okay if he loses or whatever. But still, I thought this was good. It was a nice win for Lars. We then had the New Day's farewell from SmackDown. And so I think right before this, I should mention this as well, that we had this great Bianca Belair vignette. It was only about a minute long. It's on the WWE YouTube channel, which is where I saw it, because I was watching SmackDown again, as I said earlier, on delay. And the website that I was watching SmackDown on only caught like the literal last second of this Bianca Belair vignette. So I'm thinking, okay, it's probably a vignette for her impending debut on the Blue brand. And it was. But I'm thinking it was more of the same of what we saw on Raw, which was good. But I saw the vignette. It was basically, I'm just readjusting here, it was basically a mini music video. They put a song over Bianca's highlights from NXT, over her impressive athletics, or impressive accomplishments, and her being athletic, smart, strong, blah, blah, blah. It was fantastic. It was a 60-minute piece, or 60-minute, God forbid. That would be like a WWE 24, essentially. It was like a 60-second piece, but it was really, really good. So again, if you skipped over it, if you missed it, definitely check it out on the WWE YouTube channel. Also worth mentioning, too, because this was the season premiere of SmackDown, and again, I feel dumb just saying that, they had the Fox analysts weigh in on the main event between Roman Reigns and Braun Strowman. This was a little less cringy from last year. I had just got done watching last year's draft. Alexis wanted to watch it, so we watched it a couple of days ago. The SmackDown Night 1 of the 2019 WWE Draft. And it was on that show where they had the Fox analysts weigh in on the draft, and it had nothing to do with WWE. It was a complete waste, and I appreciate the attempt to get these guys to talk about the company. None of these people watch wrestling, at least not anymore. Do you think Terry Bradshaw's tuning into fucking SmackDown every Friday night? Probably not. Probably not. They were fed lines, but it came across well. It came across better here than it did a year ago. And I said this about the draft. I am so freaking happy that we did not get the dumb war room bullshit with this year's draft that we got last year. That was so bad and cringy. I'm so happy we didn't have that happen this year. With the USA Network and the Fox executives. Yeah, bullshit. Yeah, those were actual executives. Give me a break. And if they were, they look like morons. So anyway, back to the show. We had a 6-man tag team match. The farewell for the New Day. Now, I think I said the final farewell earlier. Obviously, these guys will be back together. Unless one of them gets hurt, their career is over, or they quit the company. I mean, even then, I feel like if they're going to quit the company, they'll probably do one last New Day reunion. For example, when Ambrose said, he put it in his notice a year and a half ago in January of 2019, WWE got wind of that. They knew he was on his way out, so they did a Shield reunion on the way out. They didn't have to. They did. His actual last match in the company, Ambrose's was that, I believe, that Shield Final Chapter show that they aired on the network in April of last year. So his final match in the company was a Shield six-man tag team match, which is pretty cool. I don't think that's going to happen with the New Day, but it's just kind of worth mentioning. But nonetheless, though, I thought this was a great, great match. Before the match even started, they had Kofi, Big E, and Xavier cut promos about their time together, kind of reliving their greatest moments. They mentioned the Usos feud from 3 years ago. They mentioned winning 2 triple threat tag team matches on the same show in December of 2016, because by the end of that show, they became the longest reigning WWE Tag Team Champions in WWE history, which was cool. They relived Kofi's WWE Championship win from last year. A lot of cool moments, and there are a lot of great moments that the New Day have been involved in from when they debuted 6 years ago, which is crazy to think about, to 2020. And this was awesome. They really let these guys speak from the heart, which I appreciated. They came across like actual human beings. And listen, I love the goofy New Day stuff, but this was not the time nor the place for that. So I thought this was awesome. They really spoke from the heart. Xavier got emotional at one point, saying that Kofi and Big E really took a chance on him by recruiting him into the group when they didn't have to. Kofi got emotional at one point, saying that, you know, he didn't just meet 2 of his tag team partners, 2 of his friends, but like 2 of the best friends he's ever had, he said. They all got really emotional. Big E wasn't on the verge of crying, but I guess we kind of got that last week when he found out he was being split up from the group. He almost was on the verge of tears last week, so I thought this was awesome. Really, really great stuff. The match that followed between them and the trio of Sheamus, Shinsuke Nakamura, and Cesaro was just as great. They all worked wonderfully together. It had a great pace. They were given a ton of time. Just a great New Day 6-man tag team match. The heels played their roles really, really well. Sheamus and Cesaro, great to see them back together as the Bar. I enjoy Cesaro and Nakamura, but the Bar was the shit for a while there. It was one of the best makeshift tag teams in the modern era, in my opinion. A lot of tag team titles between those two. And, Cesaro has a very rich history with the New Day. I love the fact that the commentators, we shit on the commentators a lot, but Michael Cole and Corey Graves here on commentary did a great job of recapping how Nakamura, Cesaro, and Sheamus have a very storied history with these guys. Now, obviously, the match made sense from the standpoint that Big E just faced Sheamus in a Falls Count Anywhere match last week. New Day's Kofi and Xavier Woods just beat Cesaro and Nakamura to regain the SmackDown Tag Team titles last week. But, Nakamura and Cesaro beat the New Day to win those championships originally, back in July. Sheamus and Cesaro have won and have lost many tag team titles to the New Day, both on Raw and on SmackDown. They've had a lot of matches with the New Day, even including on the anniversary of this show. It was 2 years ago from this episode of SmackDown, at SmackDown 1000, that the Bar beat the New Day, albeit with the help of the fucking Big Show, who turned heel for the millionth time, what else is new, to win the SmackDown Tag Team titles. That was exactly 2 years ago from when the show aired, which was pretty cool. They didn't mention that here, I just remembered that because I have a weird memory. But even Cesaro, I completely forgot about this. But I think it was Michael Cole who brought this up. Cesaro lost the tag titles that he held with Tyson Kidd 5 years ago to the New Day. And that was the New Day's very first tag team title win in the spring of 2015. Again, I completely forgot about that. I think it was April or May of that year that the New Day beat, I think it was early May of 2015. May 4th, actually, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. That, excuse me, or maybe May 3rd or something. I think it was May 4th. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. That the New Day beat Cesaro and Tyson Kidd to win those tag team titles for the first time. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, I thought this was a great match. They had Big E and Xavier do their Midnight Hour finisher one last time on Sheamus to pick up the victory. Sheamus is on his way to Raw, so it made sense for him to get pinned. Really cool to see the Midnight Hour one more time. Kofi and Xavier do a different version of that, and we saw that on Raw this week when they beat Ziggler and Roode. But this version, I think, is better. It's like a combination of, it's not a very impactful finisher. It's not one of the greatest finishers I've ever seen. It's kind of like a modified big ending, but it's still cool. Something I did not know, and maybe someone can correct me on this, worth mentioning real quick. There's a move that Xavier does that's essentially like a backbreaker, or a backstabber rather, the finisher that Carlito used to do, that he kind of made famous many years ago. Xavier hit a version of that, I think in the corner to someone, or maybe it was just with one knee. Michael Cole called the move Morning Woods. Has he ever called that move Morning Woods before? I feel like if he did, I would have remembered that. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, can you get away with that on a PG show? I just thought that was... I was not expecting that. Like, what are kids supposed to think here? Not that I give a fuck, but like, if a kid hears that and they're thinking, oh, Morning Woods, what's the significance of that? You know what I mean? Like, I was like, okay, that's a little weird. But anyway, I thought it was a great match. Very happy to see the New Day win. And even better, that the New Day did not turn on each other. Very predictable Wrestling 101 bullshit booking for one of the guys to turn on the other. We did not need to see that with the New Day. They should never turn on each other. It would make no sense. Didn't need to see that. I'm glad we didn't see that. We got a great heartfelt hug from them instead, so I thought that was perfect. We had Daniel Bryan out next. Now, we have not seen Daniel Bryan on SmackDown since June, I think, Michael Cole said, in about 4 months. This was his Thunderdome debut, as if that makes any, like, who fucking cares? Oh, he's in the Thunderdome. It's going to make it that much better. Like, who gives a shit? Like, I like the Thunderdome, but the fact they build it as his Thunderdome debut means nothing to me. It was cool to see Bryan back. I'm very happy to see him back. He was gone for a while. Excuse me. He had a son named Buddy. They named Buddy, him and Brie Bella, who was actually on one of the screens, by the way. And they had a lot of screens over the course of the show. They had Brie and Birdie. They had people popping up on the Thunderdome screens. They had Brie and Birdie, Mark Henry, Rob Stone from Fox. It was a former 24/7 champion. They had Goldberg at one point, Ric Flair, maybe someone else, which was cool. They kind of promoted that going in. Goldberg teased on Twitter going into the show that he was very interested in the Universal Championship matchup, and I could see them following up with Goldberg. I thought he might appear on the show in person. Thankfully, we did not get that. I don't think Goldberg needed to show up on this show, but I thought that was interesting. So anyway, Bryan's been back for he's been gone for a while. Back to Bryan here. He returned on this show. Basically talking about the people that he's excited to see and face on SmackDown, that being the Riot Squad, Bianca Belair. Very cool to see him shout out the women, which I'm sure is his idea. And we found out while he was away that Bryan actually has a pretty heavy creative influence on the show, which does not surprise me in the slightest, considering who was kind of getting pushed while he was gone. People like Big E, Gran Metalik, people like that. Doesn't surprise me at all. So he name-dropped the Riot Squad. He name-dropped Bianca Belair. He mentioned Kevin Owens, Aleister Black, all of whom, obviously not the women, but Owens and Black, he's never had a singles match with before. Black debuted on the main roster just over a year ago, but he's always been on Raw. He was on SmackDown last year, but they were both baby faces, so we never got Black and Bryan. Owens and Bryan have always been on opposing shows, so we never really got to see them go one-on-one. They did have a tag team match at WrestleMania about 2.5 years ago, so I could see a situation where we might be able to see that match again at some point, this time one-on-one, which I think would be cool. So while he's mentioning all these people, we had Seth Rollins come out. He neglected to mention the Monday Night Messiah turned SmackDown Savior, Seth Rollins. Now, Bryan and Rollins have had matches before, but they've actually never had a full-fledged feud, believe it or not. In the many years they've spent together in WWE, they have never had a full-fledged feud. Rollins' debut match in WWE was against Bryan, technically. It was Rollins, Reigns, and Ambrose as the Shield against the trio of Ryback, Kane, and Bryan as Team Hell No. Kane and Bryan were Team Hell No at that point. They've had a ton of singles matches on Raw and on SmackDown. I know they had a couple matches in 2015. They actually had a match as recently as last year on Raw, which I completely forgot about because I was wondering when the last time they had a match was, and if they've had a match since Bryan returned to the ring, because Bryan's always been on SmackDown. Bryan's always been a SmackDown guy. Rollins was always a Raw guy, but it was right after they established the dumb wild card rule that Bryan came over to Raw for a night and they had a match or two on Raw and Rollins won. But they've never had a feud, so I think that's a great feud to do at some point. I don't know if they're doing it now. It seems like Rollins has a lot of enemies right now, so I wouldn't do that match. I mean, I guess they could do the match. It's not the first time ever, but I would hold off on an eventual Bryan-Rollins feud until after Rollins leaves and comes back. So if Rollins is going to be on paternity leave, I believe it's called. For guys, for women, I think it's called maternity. For guys, it's paternity. if that is indeed what he's doing and he won't be on TV for a little while, I think Becky's due in December, then he should put over Murphy on the way out. So Murphy came out during this segment, attacked Rollins. They kind of teased being on the same side. He went after Rollins. He teased, they teased that he went after Rollins. They had Rey and Dominic tease going after Rollins as well. So Rollins has a lot of enemies right now. If he's going to lose to anyone on his way out, and he really hasn't lost a lot lately. And he lost the tag team match or whatever to Rey and Dominic at Payback, but I don't think he was pinned. I think it was Murphy, actually. Actually, I know it was Murphy. He beat Rey at Extreme Rules. He beat Dominic at SummerSlam. He beat Dominic another 2 times on Raw. So I don't really need to see either one of them beat Rollins. I mean, I guess they can, and then Murphy can also beat Rollins. But if he's going to put over anyone on his way out, it should be Murphy. I don't know what you do with Rey and Dominic from here. I know I'm all over the place, but that's what I want to say. So Murphy attempted to shake the hand of Murphy, or rather Rey Mysterio and Dominic. They wanted no part of it. They just walked off, which made sense. And listen, I want Murphy as a babyface. I don't know if that's the better role for him. He's always been a great heel, but they got to turn him face for this feud with Seth Rollins. I would think that would make the most sense. So if you're going to do that, that's fine. But you can't have Rey and Dominic accept his apology from day one. That would make absolutely no sense. So thankfully, that's not what they didn't. They didn't do that here. They refused the handshake and they walked off. So there's more story to be told there. No sign of Aaliyah. And listen, maybe she stayed put on Raw. She could only travel to the shows if it was on Raw, on SmackDown. Maybe, hey, you know what? She's a 19-year-old girl. Maybe she's going out and partying. I don't know. Monday she was free. Fridays maybe not so much. But anyway, in all seriousness, I like the segment here. I like the tease of a Bryan Rollins feud. I would hold off on that until after Rollins comes back, presumably from paternity leave, and then do Rollins and Murphy in the meantime. And then with Rey and Dominic, I have no fucking clue. For the SmackDown Tag Team titles, maybe they could chase the tag titles at some point. Maybe not the Profits, but maybe Ziggler and Roode. So we got a SmackDown Tag Team title match between the Street Profits, Dolph Ziggler, and Robert Roode. Now, I would not have done this match. They're obviously building to a rematch at the pay-per-view. They should have never done the match to begin with. Roode and Ziggler just lost the Raw Tag Team title match on Raw this week. So to have them lose here would have been dumb. And it was way too soon for the Profits to lose, because they're technically the brand new SmackDown Tag Team Champions. Their reign starts at 0. So, I don't know. I just wouldn't have done the match. I would have done maybe an angle or just, kept it to the opening segment. I don't know, but I thought this was a waste. So, Ziggler and Roode get DQ'd after essentially kicking too much ass. They beat the shit out of one of the Profits in the turnbuckle corner, and the referee called for the bell. And I'm thinking, what the fuck? So that was the extent of it. The Profits stood tall. We're definitely getting a rematch at the pay-per-view. I wouldn't even have Ziggler and Roode win there, but I guess if they do, you could always build to a Rey and Dominic versus Ziggler and Roode matchup, which, may not be too bad. I think Rey and Dominic as a tag team, if you're going to keep Dominic around on the main roster, is probably the right role for him at this point. We then had a contract signing between the SmackDown Women's Champion Bayley and Sasha Banks for their upcoming Hell in a Cell match for the SmackDown Women's Championship at WWE Hell in a Cell next weekend. I thought this was really good. It should have absolutely lasted longer. And I don't normally say that about contract signings and promos, but they were just starting to scratch the surface before this got, cut off or, ended abruptly. This is the mic work I've been waiting to hear from these two. Bayley's cut some good promos on her own since she turned on Sasha last month. Sasha's mic work just wasn't the greatest. She's cut some promos backstage. She did that sit-down interview at the PC at one point. It just wasn't very good, but I thought she came across great here. And she mentioned all the things that she should have, including how she was there for her in NXT. She called her after everyone else was called up, but not her. Sasha was the first one to reach out to her. She helped her win the Raw Tag Team titles, or the Raw Women's Championship, I'm sorry. They won the tag titles together. She helped her retain the SmackDown Women's Championship on multiple occasions. She said, "My name is bigger than your title." And then they kind of got off in a bit of a brawl, and that was it. Bayley never signed the contract. I don't know what that's about. Maybe there's a hook for next week. The match is obviously happening. Maybe they get the contract changed, and it's like a different type of cell match, like Roman and Jey, which is now I Quit. I don't know. But I'm looking forward to the match. This got me more excited for Bayley and Sasha at the pay-per-view than anything else they've done so far, aside from that initial injury angle on SmackDown a month ago. I thought this was really well done. The only issue, the only nitpick I have with it is that it should have lasted longer. It was that good. So we then get the main event, Roman Reigns and Braun Strowman for the Universal Championship. Now, as I said a week ago, what did Braun do to get a title shot? No one knows. Absolutely no clue. I thought this was exactly what it needed to be, though. As much as I feel like I've seen Roman and Braun a million times, they've always worked well together, dating back to their initial feud in 2016 or 2017. They had a couple, six-mans in 2015, but Braun was pretty bad back then. They had some pretty good matches in 2017. The mini feud in 2018 was terrible. This was good, though. It was just a short sprint. They got all their shit in. Roman won, and that was it. It was over in like 10 minutes or less. I thought it was a very good match for what it was. No, obviously, unpredictability surrounding the outcome, which is why I wouldn't have done it. Braun has not been on SmackDown, even though he's now a Raw superstar. He was a SmackDown superstar dating back to, last year's draft. We have not seen Strowman on the Blue brand since he lost the Universal Championship. I think he signed the contract. Actually, yeah, he signed the contract of the Payback match on the SmackDown before Payback. And he beat Gulak, I think, on that same show. Other than that, though, we have not seen Strowman on SmackDown at all. So I think it was dumb to put him in this position. But it worked, and the match was fine. I can't really complain. So Jey Uso came out afterwards. They did some great interaction there. Roman was fantastic. Jey was fantastic. They were both great in their respective roles. With Roman urging Jey to come in the ring and say, listen, this is what we got to do to put food on the table. Let's attack guys like Braun. This is what we got to do. This is what we got to do. So he starts laying in these chair shots on Braun. And before Jey can do it too, he goes after Roman. He lays out Roman. Roman goes after Jey. This whole thing was great. It was really, really well done. Really well done. It was a great way to go off the show. And again, much like the contract signing, it successfully got me more excited for the SmackDown, for the Universal Championship match at the pay-per-view than it was previously between Roman Reigns and Jey Uso. So overall, a really, really good show. I thought for a reset episode of SmackDown that this was great. The season premiere stuff I think is fucking dumb. It's obviously not a season premiere. We're getting the same shit on Raw this week, so it is what it is. But anyway, I'm looking forward to seeing what they're doing, what they're going to do going forward with the SmackDown brand. They have a lot of good people they can build around. Some intriguing storylines. I'm interested to see where we go with Sami Zayn as the Intercontinental Champion. They're kind of teasing a Sami Zayn-Otis feud, which is interesting. I wouldn't have Otis beat Sami, but it's a feud, I guess. They're going to have to really start to reshuffle the deck next week because we had some Raw people on this show. So next week we'll really get a better idea, of what this roster looks like. People like Owen should be on the show, Baron Corbin, Aleister Black, Apollo Crews, people like that, So I thought this was a great show, though. One of my favorite SmackDowns in a while. And again, that's saying something because SmackDown's been quite good for a little bit now. So a very enjoyable episode of SmackDown on the whole. Thank you guys for checking out my review right here on the channel or on the website. I appreciate it. Be sure to, if you're listening on YouTube, like the video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more daily content. Be sure to check out the playlist down below in the description box for more SmackDown reviews. I should be back for another one next Saturday. It really just depends week to week. I'm always busy usually. So I think next week we'll probably do one, but I have no idea to say for sure in advance. But keep an eye out for that next Saturday. Be sure to check out my exclusive interviews talking about SmackDown with SmackDown star Paul Heyman, the advocate for the reigning defending Universal Champion Roman Reigns, the tribal chief himself. I didn't talk to Roman, but I did talk to Paul Heyman for 30 minutes here on the channel for Bleacher Report yesterday. Check out the article in the description of that video, and check out the audio of the interview itself right here in the channel from yesterday, which is all the more reason to subscribe, by the way. All the more reason to subscribe for more exclusive interviews with people like Triple H, Seth Rollins, Finn Balor, Kevin Owens, and much, much more. So have a great one, guys. Be sure to keep an eye out for my Talking Smack review. That should also be coming out at some point in the next couple of hours. I know this video is delayed. It's just been a very busy weekend, but the Talking Smack review should either be up in a little while, immediately after this, or tomorrow. So I know it's kind of a wide range, but keep an eye out for it here on the channel. All the more reason, like I said, to hit that bell button to be notified every time a new video goes up. Have a great one, guys. I'm Graham G.S. Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.